You know what's been really bugging me recently, and it's something that I'm worried about, and that is in this country, the United Kingdom, I'm noticing a lot of people really want a American-style race politics to be brought over into this country and to be enacted upon the people. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, I mean very high tensions between whites and blacks and pretty much any other minority you can imagine, though mainly those two particular demographics, more increased distrust of the police in regards to black people rather than just everybody in general. We should be sceptical and critical of the police from all ethnicities and all walks of life. These people should not be allowed to have too much power, but at the same time they should be allowed to do their jobs and at the same time be given the support when they're in the right, rather than just be strictly named as like the enemy. They're the enemy. They're not there to help you. They're just basically an army that's there to oppress you, when really they could be used like that, but they're really not. You know, the BLM talking points. And I've seen this increasingly seep into my country, and mainly through BLM UK, although recently people in the mainstream, people on the BBC, and are beginning to espouse this bullshit. Why would they want something like this in this country? We don't have a history of the type of shit that America had that has led up to where they are now. We don't. We have had our own issues with racism, I'm not gonna lie. There's a reason why the riots in 1981 happened. There's a reason in 2011 why riots happened. Why, for some strange reason, those riots started off as riots over a mixed race guy getting shot to overwhelmingly white people being violent in England. Why is that? But nonetheless, these ideologues want that over here. They want something to complain about. They want their Jim Crow. They want their, well, NFL. And this is what this guy, Kahindi Andrews, I forgot his actual name, wants. He wants black British stars, sports stars that is, to bend the knee to the national anthem, even though in our country we have several national anthems, although technically England doesn't have one. So he's asking English athletes to bend the knee to an anthem we only play because we don't have one, and he's asking the Scottish and the Welsh and the Irish to do the same, even though these people are very proud of being Scottish and what have you. They love their anthems, they love being who they are. And it's similar to the English ones, but I'll get into that. I can't just lay all my cards out. Let's watch the BBC lecture us about why we should be bending the knee.
British sports stars should take a knee during the national anthem.
The British sports stars should take a knee for the national anthem. And if they're footballers, they might incur the wrath of FIFA because you're not supposed to politicise events. You can get fined for that, like Argentina recently got fined when they unfurled a banner about the Falkland Islands. Now it's apparently theirs when it isn't. They got fined tens of thousands of pounds for that. And now you want British footballers to do the same. You want athletes to do the same. You want rugby players and you want other sports stars to do the same. Why? What have we done recently? What has happened in our political history right now that means we should do what the American NFL players are doing? Why should we copy them? What is there to do other than historical shit that happened a long time ago?
After President Trump attacked NFL players who joined Colin Kaepernick's refusal to stand during the US national anthem, he sparked a wave of protest.
Well, only amongst the minority that voted against him. This is a uniquely American problem which has no place in British politics because nothing has happened that could warrant such a thing. And by British sports stars, he means black ones. So I'm going to give you examples. So England football players. So we've got Dele Alli, Marcus Rashford, who's a local boy here from Man United. Yeah, big up Marcus Rashford. Danny Welbeck. Who else have we got? We've got Daniel Sturridge. And these are mostly athletes that aren't really known for their political statements, like, at all. And they don't tend to politicise the sport. They don't tend to, at least as far as I know, especially footballers, they don't let their politics be known in public. This seems to be a tradition or just some kind of trait I've seen. We're not very political when it comes to sport, unless it's the fans. The fans do, but the players don't tend to as much anymore.
The players stress that they are not protesting either the anthem or the flag, but racial injustice in America.
Well, that's kind of funny because why are they going on about the flag and why are you going on about our flag? If you're supposed to be protesting racial oppression, then why are you talking about the flag? Why is this Newsnight segment titled "The flag is not a symbol of pride but oppression"? This is clearly about the flag. This is not about oppression. This is, again, control from the far left. Kaepernick is simply virtue signalling. All those people are virtue signalling. If anything, they're making race relations worse by doing this. By blaming all their problems on white people. There's not a single statistic to back that up. But hey, whatever. Apparently that's happening here.
And their right to freedom of expression.
They're protected under the First Amendment. There's no need to protest that. And it's kind of cheap coming from them when they are the types of people who will go to rallies, free speech rallies held by Trump supporters and other political organisations, it doesn't matter where they are on the spectrum, and will shut it down. Either they will petition people, they will scream loudly, or they will become Antifa, or just send Antifa in and use violence to get rid of these people. But hey, apparently freedom of expression, that's what they're all for.
But why not protest the flag? Racism is so deeply ingrained that it is part of the DNA of the nation.
I guess that's why in the 1960s and 70s they did a whole lot of trouble to get rid of all that bullshit. And now we're seeing a resurgence in racism and poor race relations in America. Again, he's talking more about America, yet he's asking us to do the same for some people who we're not really related to. Who is creating all these poor relations right now? It's the far left. Advocating for safe spaces, which is essentially another word for segregation. Black students who are of the far left variety, not the normal ones, not the ones who just want to go and study, they want to be segregated from whites. It's the far left doing all this, but apparently America's just always been this way, even though before the 2010s, race relations were nowhere near as bad.
Britain is no different.
Oh yes, we are. We are very different. Very, very, very different. We do not have the history of Jim Crow. We actually, funnily enough, on British soil, we don't have the same history of slavery. Yes, we had slaves in the colonies, but as I mentioned in the previous video, if a slave set foot on English soil, he was free. We just don't have that same history. We don't have the same social problems that they had for hundreds of years. We just don't. We had similar issues in the inner cities, but they were nowhere near as on the same scale as America. And even then, we managed to, on the whole, sort it out until very recently when the same old far left idiots decided that, oh, we've got to agitate these young black people and tell them they're being oppressed and it's the white man that's doing it. While at the same time demonising said white people and not helping the white working class, which is further pushing them towards the far right, as is usually the case.
The police may not kill as many black people, but is that only because they do not routinely carry guns?
Recently with the Ray Charles thing, he killed himself by purposely ingesting something. And with other events, like what happened in Tottenham a couple of years ago, he had a gun and he was willing to use it and they shot him. What do you expect?
Every inequality of housing, employment, education and wealth that plagues African Americans is strongly felt by black people in Britain.
And then explain why white people aren't doing very well in education. Why is it that poor whites are a minority in university application? I think you'll find that African Americans live in a very different country and culture than black British people. So they have different issues. It's not the same. This is a false equivalence. Even then, there's a difference between people of African descent and Caribbean descent. So you're just grouping all of them together as one thing. There's one big homogenous group when they're not. In fact, they don't usually get along with each other.
All of this injustice is the direct legacy of the British Empire.
No, it's not. That's nothing to do with the British Empire. The British Empire was collapsing as their ancestors, my ancestors, basically emigrated over here. It has nothing to do with the empire.
That often made its place in the world through genocide, slavery, and colonialism.
I'll have you know that before the Anglo-Zulu War, it was the Zulus doing the very same thing in that area. I'll have you know that the Mongols did the same thing. The Chinese did the same thing. Many African kingdoms did the same thing. That's where we got our slaves from. Powerful black tribes and kingdoms giving us people in return for firearms and other resources. Why is it that they always ignore that part of history, I wonder?
The empire produced a toxic national identity, yet many people are yearning to roll back the clock to when Britannia ruled the world.
In what way is it toxic? How is it toxic? Considering that it was the same British Empire that outlawed slavery and, for the most part, not always, handed over the reins of their empire to the people who wanted independence. We were nowhere near as violent as the French in trying to keep it.
So, rather than draping themselves in the flag or tearing up during the anthem, British sports stars should take a knee or clench a fist.
Oh, brilliant. So, because what's happening in America is happening, we should do the same thing. And because, as I predicted before, historical events that doesn't actually influence anything that's happening right now, we should bend the knee and clench a fist, because obviously he wants to radicalise and turn these athletes who have no interest in this whatsoever into black supremacists. This is literally just a black supremacist propaganda film by the BBC. I can't believe it. The thing is, in that race audit that I mentioned in the previous video, 77% of black people feel a sense of belonging. They feel that they get along well with other Britons. This is represented by those athletes. Those athletes feel that sense of belonging. If they felt this so-called oppression, why are they tearing up at the anthem? Why are they proud to be British, or what have you, depending on the sport, and celebrate their win with patriotic pride? I'm just wondering, maybe it's you who's the minority, maybe it's you who is the outlier, maybe you need to reconsider your point of view. And in fact, there was a quote by a French footballer who plays for Senegal. It's football, international rules are weird. I'm not going to get into that. And he mentioned that what he liked about England was when he talked to his black teammates in England, he played for Tottenham, all these men said that we're English, and they were proud of it apparently, and that's what he liked. That black, white, Asian, what have you, can all call themselves English, and for the most part people are like that, and that's what he liked. In France it's different, you're either Senegalese, you're Algerian, you're this, that and the other, while in Britain it's not really like that, although you do get people like that, obviously. So you're wrong, your portrayal of Britain is completely and utterly wrong, and even the government statistics point towards you being completely in the minority.
The flag is not a symbol of pride, but oppression.
How are you oppressed? You've not actually explained why you're oppressed. You're explaining how your ancestors were oppressed. And by the way, my white ancestors were also oppressed, having to work in factories non-stop just to make a living in squalid housing conditions. But hey, whatever. That's just too inconvenient for you. He'll never explain what this oppression is. He mentioned the police briefly, but even then, they don't kill because they don't have weapons as much, apparently. He's trying to twist it. He has to come up with something. There's nothing that actually gives me a pause for thought. I think, yeah, maybe we are being oppressed as POCs.
An anthem praising the monarch is not unifying, but divisive.
You do realise that the other three countries also have their own anthems that make up Britain, right? And they talk about the country. And even then, there's been talks about England adopting many other different songs for our national anthem. So there's Jerusalem, Pomp and Circumstance, otherwise known as Land of Hope and Glory, which is mainly really about Britain, but it can be applied to England. And even Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, the rugby anthem. The rugby players do not sing or stand up to the British national anthem. They sing Sweet Home, Sweet Chariot, which is an anti-slavery song. So yeah, another little thing that he forgot to mention. So should they bend the knee to a song that is supposedly espousing your viewpoint? That's a little racist, Andrews.
A nation that will not deal with the realities of its racism is not one that the children of the colonies can feel part of.
We are not children of the colonies. We've been here for the last 80 years. Some of us have been here even longer. We are not children of the colonies, we are children of the UK. And this divisiveness that you are trying to purposely spread in order to create this fear, this tension, this racial divide, so you can then get people to take a knee and spread fists, is bullshit. I don't like it. It's not going to stand with me. And it's not standing with most POCs who go against you. Even if they don't consciously go against you, the fact that their opinion is the majority and yours isn't, suggests to me that you know this, and this is why you're making videos like this, to make white and black people and other ethnicities hate each other, so that then you can essentially recruit for your cause. The flag is the centerpiece of all this. The American flag is the centerpiece of all that. Everybody's putting their own stupid interpretations onto it in order to further their own agendas, and it's bullshit. The flag is nothing more than something that represents the country. This is this country, and this is how we know we're British. That's all it is. British sports stars should not be forced to essentially promote a stupid rhetoric that you espouse. They should not be forced to do that just because you feel that you're oppressed, just because you feel that the whole country is against you. Well, I'm sorry, they're not. We do not have these deep-seated racial issues that you apparently think we have. We used to, but we've done steps to improve this. We've used quotas. We've regenerated whole inner city areas. We've pumped money into charities and other organisations to help race relations in Britain, to help minorities to improve their lot. And you still sit there and say that's not enough. We're still racist. Well, fuck you. Because we're not. And in fact, if the country was really racist, how come mixed race people are the biggest growing demographic? So much for a racist country, eh?
So, never again will I stand for the national anthem.
You never did in the first place. None of you guys ever do that. And if you so hate this country so much, if you so think it's oppressive, why don't you go back to the colonies? Why don't you go back to, I don't know, you could be Nigerian, you could be Kenyan, I don't know. Why don't you? There's nothing stopping you. But you won't, because over there, you'll find real oppression. In Africa, in the third world, there's real oppression going on. And they don't care about what race you are necessarily. They just want their control if they're in some kind of dictatorship. And you know that. And you know it's also a poorer quality of life. And you are a middle class, hell, maybe even upper class black person. And I don't think for a second you would want to take a step down, would you? Yeah, bend the knee. Only when it doesn't affect you economically, right? Anyway, people, that's the end of the video. This may have gone on a bit too long, so I'm going to go watch the football and watch Marcus Rashford score goals. So until next time, I'll see you later.
Got it back again, and Rashford has got the dream goal that he was looking for in his debut, and one he will never, ever forget. Clever movement so far from Manchester United, and there he is again! Marcus Rashford at the double. Some debut this. He couldn't have even dreamt that last night.